the one soldier of fortune to save the world. If he succeeds, you survive. If he fails, you can always hit the reset button.
Well, gamers, it's finally here. The Final Fantasy VII Remake is now here. My god, it's felt like 20 years since we saw that tech demo. Like, you know, the one where Cloud looked so weird and it, like, that was the PS3's magic right there. And you know, I was a bit worried because I thought I might be missing out. I mean, I got all these other consoles out here and it's only on PlayStation 4. Or so I thought. Turns out Final Fantasy VII Remake was out on anything, really. Xbox, PC, even the Nintendo Switch. Well, it would be if there it is, Final Fantasy VII. Like, I know the Switch is no beast, but I'm very surprised they ported the Final Fantasy VII Remake on the Nintendo Switch, so hey, it's time for it. We're here to go ahead and review the Final Fantasy VII Remake on Nintendo Switch.
3 days later.
I just thought that they were doing like a Capcom thing, like, you know how the Resident Evil remakes were just Resident Evil 2 and 3, and they didn't say like Resident Evil 2 or 3 remake. I thought they were doing that. I just thought they were like putting out the Final Fantasy VII Remake and just naming it Final Fantasy VII. Like what? I just can't sit here and talk about an old ass game that everyone knows about for like, I don't know, like 10 minutes or something. Oh well. You know, it's actually kind of interesting to say the very least because it is on the Nintendo Switch. Like, we all never thought of that ever happening before.
Because we all thought Square was really one of the bigger kinks with Nintendo games. After all, you take a look at anybody's like top 10 Super Nintendo's game list, chances are you'll find half of the list being RPG games by Square. Then 1995 happened with the Sony PlayStation, and Square looked at that shit and went like, hey, you got CDs on these things? We can jam-pack tons of shit into this. Nintendo, you got these fucking tapes? Get out of here, old man. This is the new world. So Square solely focused on making these complete fucking bangers on the Sony PlayStation. Final Fantasy VII, 8, 9. Parasite Eve was like weird sci-fi horror shit, and it was an RPG, and I love that shit. Xenogears. Does Xenogears have anything to do with Xenoblade at all? I have no idea. I never played either. They even went, hey, remember Final Fantasy 4 and 6? What happened to 5? But here's all 3 of those games on the Sony PlayStation. Also, Chrono Trigger. Because why the fuck not? There's an anime intro here. Why the fuck is this so fucking good? So while Square is on Sony making these epic RPGs, we're looking at the 64 and oh, you poor child. So yeah, the 64 had a complete lack of department of RPG games, and have I really been calling these RPGs RPG games? Oh my god, I'm a fucking idiot. And sure, yeah, Nintendo made their own in-house RPGs like Earthbound and stuff. And there was going to be an Earthbound 2 or Mother 3 on the 64. We didn't get that, and we still don't have it in the US. So with Square not on Nintendo's fancy new console, the RPGs went from like triple digits to a single digit. And sure, yeah, the 64 had their Banjo-Kazooie, their Mario 64, Buck Bumble, GoldenEye, but the 64 did not have the Final Fantasy VII, a game that changed the world.
So of course that really begs the question, what is the Nintendo 64's answer to Final Fantasy VII, the most epic RPG out there? I mean, there's Quest 64 right there.
That's right, we're here to talk about Quest 64, developed by Imagineer and published by THQ. Add that to the streak. And it's like, Quest 64 is like only remembered these days as like one of the very few, if not maybe the only true RPG game on the 64. I did it again, RPG, not RPG game. It's like ATM machine. It's redundant. I know what you're thinking. Greg, Metal Socks. What about Ocarina of Time? That's an RPG. No, it's not. It's an action-adventure game. Get the fucking gutter out of your head. But what about Paper Mario? Listen, we're not here to talk about good shit, okay? But what about Pokemon Stadium? Listen, I know you can play Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, Silver on the thing with the transfer pack, but I consider that cheating. And honestly, those Pokemon games shouldn't be played on the big screen, on the tiny screen only. So no. We're gonna talk about Quest 64 because it's a traditional RPG with random encounters, turn-based combat, overworld, items, magic, stats, We're gonna talk about it, okay? So the game has a pre-game cutscene so you can learn about the lore and the deep story about Quest 64 and the adventures. You are a kid named Brian. Yes, out of all the grand RPG protagonist names out there, you're just a kid named Brian. Brian from 7th grade that stole my Metabot. And the quickest rundown on the story of Quest 64 is that a guy stole a book in the peaceful land that you live in. Your father tried to look for the book. He's gone somewhere. So now you gotta do the thing. And that's it. That's all there is to it.
And it's like, yeah, the game story is not too deep. It's for children. Like, if you're not part of an anti-corporate, like, anarchy group or something like that. It's like one of those stories in, like, RPG Maker games where it's like, oh no, the evil bad guy stole the Book of Peace, and now you gotta find it and find your father, who might not be the villain.
So with the story out of the way, or at least the one that matters, let's talk about the presentation. I don't like it. Quest 64 reminds me a lot of those like bootleg DVDs you would find at the dollar store. You know, the ones that are like based on Disney movies, but they made it look so colorful and cheerful. It has like no sense of art direction at all. And it's not like the graphics are terrible. I mean, that's to be expected with games like these back in the day. But the aesthetics, the style, and the fact that I'm not a fan of medieval fantasy stuff, it's like, no, it's not for me, definitely. Maybe for you, maybe for a lot of people, but maybe for kids. However, when you think about stuff like RPGs, you're thinking of like, you know, a little tiny sprite on an overworld or something. No, this whole game is in a 3D environment. Yeah, that's right. Take that, Final Fantasy VII. All you have is JPEGs for backgrounds. And yes, I know Ocarina of Time did that too. I know that. Shut up. And even so, there's a seamless transition between, you know, overworld and battle mode. You're not on a different screen or anything. You're on the same map fighting the enemy. Good segue into how the gameplay works. So fucking Brian over here has the ability to cast spells that are bound to your C buttons. Up for fire, left for earth, right for wind, and down for water. And you know I gotta make this joke at least once when I mentioned the elements and everything. And do you remember the 21st night of September? This is an awful MIDI. And you mostly know how elementals work. You know, one's gonna be stronger than the other, one won't be as effective as the other. You know, Pokemon logic right there. Upgrading your elemental spells will not only make them more powerful, of course, but give you more spells. In fact, spell combinations. Like the whole idea is that you have to get more than one spell to get up to level 7. That way you can combine those 2 level 7 spells and get something out of it. So far it's only been buffs and healing, but that's actually a pretty interesting way to deal with the magic in this game. Also, across the world you can find spirit crystals, I think, and if you find one you can choose to upgrade one of the elemental spells. So yeah, it's a kind of neat way to explore the 3D world. It's even encouraged by a few NPCs in the game to search through every nook and cranny to gain more magic spells, but there's a problem with this. There's just a whole lot of nothing in this game. Like the first map alone in the monastery or something, there's a lot of these doors and you open it up and there's just nothing in there. You even try to like interact with the environment just to see if you can get some flavor attacks and there's just nothing. My issue is that, you know, this game wants me to find these magic crystals, so of course I'm going to go through every single room to find these magic crystals, and then they have nothing in there. What's the point of having nothing in there? It's the reason why survival horror games do this. If they have nothing there, then just don't show it. If you have, just say, oh, the door's locked or something, but it's there to show you the illusion that you're in a populated place. Otherwise, every room is going to be an empty hallway with nothing on the walls. The point being is that if you have nothing in there, at least put an NPC in there, just for some flavor text like, hey Brian, how's it going? How's your day? Did you give Greg his fucking Metabots back? So yeah, that's all the environment exploring and such. But what about the battles? So while the battles are turn-based, it's actually a lot more different because it is in a 3D environment. Brian is around this octagon ring that he walks around, and it's his environment. You can't go beyond that octagon. Same with the enemies, they have their own little octagon rings to have. All while the whole giant octagon around the arena is basically the battle space. You can walk off of it if you want to escape. I suppose your octagon space is supposed to be like your physical attack environment, because if you get close to an enemy, you actually whack him with a stick. What's actually really neat about this battle system is that when an enemy attacks, there's a chance you can actually dodge that attack by just just going left. Like, these enemies are like the easiest because I can just like strafe around it and they never hit me at all.
It's not like it's like those RPGs where you have a cursor and then you point at an enemy and then you attack the enemy, or something like that. And here you actually have to like aim your spell shots or get close to the enemy to whack your stick around. And it's a really interesting take on the 3D battle system, but at the very end of the day, I would rather have that cursor system, because a lot of times, like, the hits just don't register, and like sometimes I'm like using defense when I should be hitting someone. It has like a lot of mistakes that just makes this whole battle system flawed.
Another flawed thing about this RPG is you're alone. No party members. Maybe way later down the line, you probably get a party member. There's this chick in the end that's like, hey, I know you, our cross will pass once again. And I'm like, cool, I hope she joins my party. She never does. And that's not really necessarily a problem. I mean, that is like a challenge in some RPGs where you can play as only one character by just leaving the rest of your party members dead. But this game just like pits you against like tons of enemies all at once, and they expect me to kill them all so easily. In fact, easy isn't exactly the biggest thing about this game, despite its looks. So there's a forest area you gotta go to. There's a big guy that stole a thing, not the book, but he's the first boss, basically. And I was thinking, oh, okay, first boss, this is gonna be easy peasy, just one-on-one battle. This was my third try, so it sent me back all the way to the town. I gotta get out of there, go to the field, go to the forest, try to fight this guy with all the random encounters combined. It's not a fun time. So obviously the answer has to be done. I need to grind. So first let's do the easier one, agility. To upgrade agility, you just gotta walk around the map a whole bunch. It's like Oblivion, where if you want to upgrade your acrobatics, you just gotta jump around. It's like that.
So hey, if you want to get your agility up to 99 in a week, just get your hair tie and just let it flow. It might take a while.
How do you get to Princess Peach's castle? Oh, yeah.
Yo, Brady, you need to mow the lawn.
Well, I believe that's quite enough, so let's go ahead and see what I got in my agility. I mean, well, that's more agility than I had before, so it's a win-win.
Eventually, I found out this guy was weak to wind attacks. The weakest attack that I thought, and I eventually did beat him. So he's not impossible. Still took me 5 tries. So I just figured, okay, I played this game for 4 hours. I'm gonna go to the end and save the game.
And of course, this leads to its demise, and my giving upness is when you can't save the game on the cartridge itself. You need the memory pack, you gotta stick it in there, or else it's just gonna leave your Nintendo 64 on and then burn up to dust when it's overheated. And even if I really wanted to continue with the game, like, it's not a short game apparently. It takes like 12 hours to beat the game. It's very short for an RPG, but if I really wanted to complete this game, I wasn't going to leave on my 64 all the time and get in a controller pack just to stick it back in there and save the game. If I were to buy one, it'd take like 3 weeks to get here, and I'm not waiting that long for that. But thus ends the quest on Quest 64. It's not a bad game at all. It's very flawed. I would actually love to see a remake of this game. No, really. Apparently the developers are still around. They put out like fitness kickboxing on like the Nintendo Switch like a few years ago. Like, they're still around making games. So I mean, they're probably not like the same people that made this, but like still, the very fact that they're still around, I would love to see a remake of this. Fix up the flaws, add party members, balance the game, or something. Maybe a successor, perhaps. But who knows? Who really knows? But a remake of Paper Mario would be nice.
The mystery, the magic, the game. Quest 64, the new adventure RPG for Nintendo 64.
Ooh.
Get in or get out.
Payday, Mitch. I'm proud of you. With this, you join the American workforce. A rare breed of determined and dedicated quit.
Now $129.95 gets you an N64 and a second atomic purple color controller.